edition of Ventures.
On this program, we are going to explore the world of business and enterprise. We're going to take a look at manufacturing, car assembly, textiles, agribusiness, and everything in between. On this very first edition of the program, we're going to be taking on an interesting personality in the agribusiness sector. And this is a sector that is second only to oil and gas. Stay with us, don't go anywhere. Welcome to the interview segment of Ventures, and we're going to be taking a look at agribusiness. It is the second largest sector of private or even general enterprise in Nigeria outside of oil and gas. And with me in the studio to take on this very serious and large topic is Dr. Manzo Maigari. He's Director General, Nigeria Agribusiness Group. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So we'll just go to the very first question. I would like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences in the agribusiness industry.
Well, first, my name is Manzo Daniel Maigari. My background is veterinary medicine at the very basic level. But since then, my further developments and experience have been in agribusiness essentially till this moment. I've worked practically only in the private sector until 2015 when I had a stint with the Kaduna State government as Commissioner Agriculture and Forestry between 2015 and 2017. Then in 2017, I became Commissioner Commerce, Industry and Tourism for about 9 months. Then I returned to the Ministry of Agriculture again. I was there till May 2019 when I left the government. So when I left the government, that was May. By August, I had assumed my present position as Director General of the Nigeria Agribusiness Group. And that's where I am till this moment.
Okay, so let's just start by, since you've been in this industry for long, how vast are the opportunities in agriculture, and at what point do we call it a business?
Well, the opportunities in agribusiness or agriculture, if that's what you want to call it, at best I can say they are infinite. And I'm just going to give you a few statistics to give to you so that you have an idea of what the opportunities are. In 2003, there was a scoping of the commodities sector, and only 5 commodities were scoped, and they were found to be worth 6.3 trillion naira that year alone. The Nigeria's budget at that same year was 4.2 trillion naira. And so that gives you an idea of just 5 commodities. But these are even very basic raw materials that feed industry. If you want to translate that into, let's say, maize, let me take one of those commodities. If you want to translate let's say maize, into value-added products for, let's say, Nigerian breweries, let's say the animal feed sector, let's say Nestle, let's say flour mills, and the rest of them, you know that is humongous. Humongous. In fact, that will immediately, if you take those 5 commodities and extrapolate them against value addition, that will increase their value by 4 or 5 times.
And so would it be too much to ask that you tell us these 5 commodities that we're talking about?
We're talking about maize, we're talking about sorghum, we're talking about soybeans, we're talking about groundnut, and we're talking about ginger.
As you're saying now, if there's a value addition and these commodities are doing well on their own, we do not have to export them. Would you say that there's a correlation between the might of that country and its political might?
Well, very well, very well. What people do not realize is that the first line of national security is food security. If a country is not fed, if a country is hungry, you can't talk about security. Every other form of security comes behind food security. It's the first line of national security. And, but unfortunately, Africa has remained a producer of primary raw materials. We can argue for and against, but the reality of it is that I think that the governments of Africa, and Nigeria inclusive, have not done well in leveraging on the natural resources that exist in Africa. For example, Africa today is generally seen as the future of food globally, because 63% of, 53% of the world's arable land is in Africa. Yet, we are home to the poorest people, we are home to the most illiterate, we are home to all kinds of negative things. African economies, and Nigeria particularly, must pay attention to the things that make them competitive, food-wise, because our natural area of competitive advantage is agriculture. Without agriculture, Africa won't get anywhere. Forget, yes, we have a lot of other minerals that may look fantastic, but there is no infrastructure to develop those minerals, that sector in general, and the requirement in terms of infrastructure is quite high. But in virtually every economy of Africa, at least 70% of the people find livelihoods in agriculture. So upgrading and upscaling agriculture will come naturally and will require very minimal investment. And when we talk about infrastructure in agriculture, we have the hard infrastructure and we have the soft infrastructure. Maybe I start with the soft infrastructure. We talk about soft infrastructure like standardization of farm practices. When you standardize practices, then you can bring in regulation. When you bring in regulation, then you bring in certification. Once you have certification, you can compete with anybody in the world. I make bold to say that these are things that are basically lacking. And I'm going to say this: GAP, Global GAP certification, and GAP simply means Good Agricultural Practices, is a certification for commodities, and it's the it's the global benchmark for commodities, for standards in commodities. I can bet you, if at all there is any farm that is GAP certified in Nigeria, they may not be up to 5. But in Kenya, where you have a population that is less than 50 million, they have over 4,000 farms that are GAP certified. And that's why Kenya, places like Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, they are making hundreds of billions in agricultural exports, especially flowers and vegetables. Here we are with over 8 million hectares of land, 81 million hectares of land, and we are still hungry.
So, well, are we working towards food sufficiency, and are there any indices to say that we are doing some work towards food sufficiency?
Well, very well. But what we know is that a man cannot give you what he does not have from the inside of him. Most of the time, policies, strategies for food security, for increased productivity, are left in the hands of bureaucracies, government bureaucracies. And the reality of it is that you can't get too far with that. Because, for one, I have played in business. All my life, I've done only agribusiness. The sectors where I've played, I understand them extremely well. And if I have the opportunity to sit in a policy-making body, I will bring some things to the fore that will reflect the challenges and the frustrations that the businessmen face. It's not government that is going to go and do the business of agriculture. It is individuals, it is companies. So, but in crafting policies and initiatives, if the government does not call the key players from the private sector to come and state what their challenges are, the frustrations, you won't get to address those issues. It becomes a cycle where every time you are sitting down you sit down to make policies, you sit down to bring initiatives, and nothing comes out because the man who is on the field sweating it out, you don't even know his challenges and you are not connecting to him. And unless you do that, nothing really substantial will come out of it.
The program is Ventures, and we're still on this very first edition. We've been looking at agribusiness. Right now, we're going out to find out what people understand is agribusiness. Stay with the show.
We were asked to register farmers that are into ginger farming, and they're intending farmers, those that are qualified in the sense that if they have a half hectare of land and they are willing, they're expected to come out for registration. At the initial, the registration had issues because of poor mobilization, but with time we were able to surmount the problems and everything is a success. At least out of what we were expected to register, we covered 98% at least.
The farming of the ginger is interested, but where we are finding it's very difficult is about fertilizer, lack of fertilizer, and we have lack of chemicals, that sprayer, and it will help us in reducing the grasses inside the ginger. So we have to apply our effort in the lack of fertilizer, in the lack of chemicals. We have to apply our effort in removing some of the grasses in the ginger. So that is where we are finding it very difficult. In terms of fertilizer, without the fertilizer, the ginger cannot boost out well.
Although I farmed, I cultivated ginger last year, and I got too busy. So I want by the next rainy season, I will cultivate another one again to see how I can be able to make money from ginger. Because I learned that from ginger, people make a lot of money.
I want to increase in production in a large way. As you can see, this year I improved small. I want to add more next season.
Actually, I'm planning to double my farming by the grace of God, because I've really seen great improvement in it.
So your experience is from both sides of the divide, as an agribusiness person and as someone who has worked in government for at least 4 years. The bureaucratic challenges, are they hindering things like bringing technology to the grassroots? Are these the kind of things that hinder that kind of progress? Why haven't we made that kind of progress? Just bring a little technology, harrows, small harvesters. Why do we not have that at grassroots level?
In fairness to government, they've done their best. I want to tell you that probably 95% of all the mechanization that is available in agriculture in Nigeria has been government sponsored. But whether we got it right or wrong is the issue. It's important for us to also realize one thing. Mechanization is the single most important but most expensive activity in farming. Farmers can hardly afford it. And that's why you find out that our farm size is generally small, 1 hectare average. Now, if you have a tractor, or let's say government brings tractors, and a tractor has to plow or work on 1 hectare, travel 10 kilometers to work on another hectare, travel another 15 kilometers to work on another hectare. The wear and tear is more in transit than even on the farm. And if that tractor is designed, or that equipment is designed to do 50 hectares in a day, imagine the man hours lost traveling from farm to farm. So these are real issues, and then the absence of standards, like I've said, makes most of the components, the pricing of the components of activities in agriculture arbitrary. You find out that a man is charging 35,000 naira for a hectare, for plowing a hectare. Elsewhere, somebody is charging 15. Elsewhere, somebody is charging 10. So, but like I said, government has done its best. But this soft infrastructure, the setting up of standards is something that the bureaucracy does not have capacity for. And therefore, we must find ways to standardize all these practices so that, look, if a tractor is working, you have a standard price, whether it is working in Kano, whether it is working in Benue, or whether it's working in Jos. These are the realities. But if we don't get that, it's a big challenge. But I must add by saying that the government of the day has made an effort. You are probably aware of the $1.3 billion funding from Brazil on mechanization. And they are looking at setting up mechanization centers. They are looking at bringing in service providers where that will provide equipment and maintenance. So we look forward to this, and I think this is the first time that this kind of initiative is happening. It is a private sector-driven initiative, but funded by government. And all those who are going to be brought in will have to pay the loan. They are going to be the obligors, and they will pay. We hope that this will work. If we get it right this time, I tell you, it can be a game changer. But like I said, government has tried, but everything has been left in the hands of the bureaucrats most of the time.
So what can the Nigeria Agribusiness Group, what can it do to fill in some of these gaps? And is it achieving much in that area?
Yes, the Nigeria Agribusiness Group is essentially an advocacy group. We are quite fortunate to be the umbrella of all stakeholders associations and with access to all levels of government in Nigeria. And we do quite a lot of advocacy. We've achieved quite a number of things, but I'm just going to tell you a few of them for the purposes of this program. First is an advocacy that enabled us to achieve the revised SEET Act. And what does that mean? The revised SEET Act is a very robust, it's a law that grants proprietary rights to seed companies if they develop their own seed lines. And anybody that's going to use that is going to pay them royalties. It also prohibits the haphazard and careless crossing of breed lines so that you don't end up with a lot of issues around the seed. But why is the SEET Act important? The SEET Act is very important because the first point of your success in agriculture or agribusiness is the planting material. And I'm going to tell you today, for example, here we struggle to make 5 metric tons of maize per hectare. Elsewhere, they are doing over 20. You understand? And it all has to do with the seed material, the potential, because there are seeds that are by far better than others. Here you find out that because our farmers are generally poor, they just pick from the harvest and replant the following year. So, but when you get improved seeds, specially produced seeds, you get a better yield. You know. Then another thing is that we've worked with a few other organizations, for example, like AGRA, to achieve a tomato policy. And what did the tomato policy is? Prior to this time, most companies used to import bulk tomato paste, or sometimes even already packaged tomato paste straight into the market. Yes, and our farmers were here suffering and all that. And when you look at it critically, the countries from where they import these tomatoes have a less season for production of tomatoes. For example, is it Italy? They have just 6 months to produce tomatoes. Is it China? It's not. Some places not even up to 6 months. But Nigeria can produce tomatoes for 8 months. In fact, with the coming of hybrid non-determinant varieties of tomatoes, you can produce all year round because our weather is not harsh at all. So we had no business outsourcing jobs. We had no business outsourcing our wealth to other countries. So our advocacy led to the pronouncement of the policy pronouncement by government, which banned the importation of bulk tomato paste. And today, not only have farmers gained wealth, but that policy statement has brought investment into that sector in excess of $50 million. And it is doing extremely well. There's one level of advocacy that we're involved in, which we consider extremely very important. We are doing an advocacy to enable a regime for standards and regiments for commodities across Nigeria. And I tell you, this is the game changer. If you have read the charter of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, said countries are going to trade on mutually agreed terms, which simply means what? Unless I agree to buy from you, you can't sell. You can't push it by force. Now, and I'm going to ask, why should I buy commodities from Nigeria where I don't trust the quality, I don't trust the standard, I don't trust the hygiene, I don't trust the sanitation? When I could easily buy from Kenya, where there are over 4,000 farms that have certification, that anybody can look at and say, hey, this is wonderful, this is global standard. So we have gotten to the point where there is a body at the moment called NINAS, that is Nigeria National Accreditation System. We are at the level of another level of advocacy to get the federal government to pronounce NINAS as a national agency for accreditation. Now, what are the benefits? As I've stated one, but the benefits are that once that NINAS is pronounced as an agency of accreditation agency of the federal government, it will be aligned to the international accreditation fora and multilateral accreditation bodies for peer review, for benchmarking. Now, once we achieve that, it is that accreditation body that will now accredit Standards Organization of Nigeria, NABG, Quarantine Services, Federal Department of Veterinary Public Health, to enforce standards, because they now will be certifying bodies. They are enforcers. The mistake we have made is to see Standards Organization as an accreditation body. No. It is an enforcer, and there should be an accreditation body, a national accreditation body that will align all the practices to the international benchmark. Now, if you do that, not only will it will unleash the economy such that whatever has been accredited here or whatever has been certified here will be accepted as having complied with the global standards and practices. And so our products, whether they are agricultural or even manufactured products, will not be subject to check at the country of destination once they live here. So this is going to be a real game changer, and this is something that we are working on.
Thank you for staying with Ventures. On this debut edition of the program, we looked into the agribusiness sector and we spoke with Maigari Manzo, who is the Director General of Nigeria Agribusiness Group. He has enlightened us on some aspects of the agribusiness sector. Do stay with us next week for the concluding part of this very interesting interview. Ventures, celebrating enterprise. See you next week.